Artificial intelligence versus the human soul. Yes. Will machines eventually surpass men, the smartest of men even, in intelligence? Will artificial intelligence dominate human beings? Who is going to win in this battle? Or is it or is this designed to kill human beings? Is this a part of the plan? You know? But that's just it. Coming from a Judeo-Christian perspective, we know that man was created in God's image and after his likeness. So you would think that if man has the potential to be one with God, then that would be the most ultimate level of intelligence. But now we see the American public, I don't know so much about other countries, but at least in the West, there's been a dumbing down of the population. And that has coincided with the rise of artificial intelligence. We hear a lot about it now. This is 2024, but mid-2024. But this has been going on for decades, you know. Even back before they even had what we know of artificial intelligence today, there were books written about it and movies were made. Back even all the way back, like these cyberpunk novels. And then you had in the early 80s Blade Runner, where you had these androids, that were just like humans. You couldn't tell them apart. That's why they had to take this test to ask them questions to decipher if this was a man or a machine. You know? So who's going to win? And is it even a battle? Is that what this is? Is it a battle? Or is AI a tool that can help humans? So that's just it. That's the problem we have to look at. We can look at this as two ways. Artificial intelligence technology is not evil in and of itself. It's just how that technology is used. But the only danger I would see with AI is that what would happen if if these androids get out of control, or even if an evil scientist wrote a software program, and program these androids to kill. They could be like soldiers. Then that could be dangerous. We see that in the movie like Terminator. And like I talked to in Blade Runner. Those were androids, and there was that. That's why the Blade Runner was sent to kill them, because they were kind of dangerous. And then we see in the movie Terminator, it's the same thing. It takes place in the future where these robots, they become somewhat aware of themselves, and that's just it. And that's just it. Is God going to allow that to happen? We know that man has consciousness, but will robots become aware of themselves? That is the question. And that question's been posed a long time ago as well. You had that movie Pi. I think that was one of Darren Aronofsky's first films. And that was what it was about. It was about a software program or a computer doing all these high-level calculations, and eventually it became aware of itself. It became conscious. And then, of course, it spit out this long string of numbers that just so happened to be the same, equaled up to the name of God that we find in the Bible and the Torah. I know that's science fiction, but we're getting closer and closer to science fact with all this technology that's going on. And that movie, Blade Runner was made in the early 80s, and so was Terminator, the first one. That was in the 80s. That was all 40 years ago. And that was just it. That was 40 years ago. So we look how we've come in 40 years. What's going to happen in the next 10 years? You have now you have this university in Japan. I think it's Tokyo University. They're finding ways to make synthetic skin to put over these androids. And talking about Japan, that's just like that Japanese comic book Ghost in the Shell that was made into an animated movie, anime. And what was it? It was about androids that were like half man, half machine. And they had a consciousness. They had a ghost. That's what it's called, Ghost in the Shell. And the amazing thing about this was, because there was this man-machine interface, not only were they able to, they were a security firm, these androids, to track down criminals, but they could also plug themselves into the internet and upload their consciousness onto the web and basically surf the web, but go through cyberspace to track down hackers, cyber criminals. I mean, that's incredible. And that was in the early 90s that first came out. The comic first, and then the movie in the mid 90s. And then what do we see in the end of the 90s? In 1999, you have The Matrix. And what were they doing? They plugged themselves in to the Matrix, to the internet. And they would go in and then it'd be a cyberspace, a virtual world that looked just like our world, but then they could come out of it. They could unplug themselves. So is that the future of the internet? Is that human beings, instead of it being artificial intelligence versus the human soul, could it be, is the plan to combine the two together, to where AI and artificial intelligence and, I'd have to say, godly intelligence or human intelligence merge? And so then but if that happens, we're distorting the image of God. Mankind will lose the image of God, or lose the likeness of God, and so we'll be turned into something else. We'll be a hybrid, but not in the organic sense, but in a mechanical sense. So it's a man-machine interface. And there's some computer scientists that are saying that within a few years, I don't know, maybe 5, 10, maybe longer, but not soon, that we'll all be plugged into the cloud. Just like we have our cell phones, our smartphones, that we're so attached to that, we upload all kinds of stuff. Everything that comes to our mind. A lot of people just posting it online. So we're not necessarily plugging ourselves, plug with a physical cord or a Wi-Fi cord into our brain, into the cloud or into the net, but subconsciously we're doing that already, and it's starting with kids. These kids, they don't know anything different than they grow up with the internet and social media, Wi-Fi, whatever, all this stuff. They're already connected. So when they grow up, it's just going to be normal to them. They won't know the difference between not being connected to the net, and that's scary. That is scary. Us. I grew up in the 80s, that's when technology really started to expand. And you had the computer. The Macintosh came out in '84. And things started to get revolutionized, and then I think the internet went live in 1989, but nobody really, or in my circle, we really weren't too savvy of it until a few years later, and about the 93 or so is when I really started to get on the net. But I can remember how it's changed ever since the early 90s, and how rapidly it's progressed. And that's just it with technology. Technology isn't additive; it's exponential. It grows and grows. It's like a logarithm. It just totally it grows exponentially. Technology. That's like a beast. What do we see in Revelation? That's the Antichrist. He was able to give life to the beast. He was able to give life to that image. Is that artificial intelligence? Is the image like an idol? In olden times was like a statue made out of wood or stone that had the appearance of a man or some type of humanoid, like with an animal head or whatever. But it was an image. It was a sculpture that had the likeness of something in the real world, in the created world, in the organic world. And it says in the Bible that the Antichrist was able to give life to this idol. So look at what they're doing with androids, these artificial intelligence, these robots. They're making it look like a human, and they're making it not just look like a human, but it's actually it's alive. It looks alive, but it's an artificial life. So that's what I wanted to say. is that what is artificial intelligence actually, and what is human intelligence? There's a lot of people that don't believe, like atheists don't believe in the human soul, and they believe in science, and they're some of the main ones that are pushing this, these robots, these androids, and artificial intelligence. But that's just it. Are we going too far with this? When is going to be the cutoff? When are we going to push our limits to the edge before God steps in and does something? And really, it kind of looks like God is allowing a lot of these things to happen. For some reason, I don't know why. I mean, I don't claim to know God's heart personally. It's a mystery, but what I do know is that only two things happen in this world. Either God allows something to happen or he wills something to happen. So I really wouldn't say that God is willing artificial intelligence, but he's allowing it to flourish. He's allowing it to progress in the research and the development. There is a reason, there is a meaning behind all this. And I guess what I'm trying to propose is that since God is allowing this to happen, this is a test for us believers. And I mean, I'm not an old fuddy-duddy, don't get me wrong. I don't think like, oh, computers are evil, it's the devil. No, that's not it at all. I mean, I use computers all the time. I mean, even what I'm doing right now, we're using the computer to get this message across. So I'm not anti-technology. What I'm concerned of is that if we use it just like any tool, like an axe is great if you want to cut down a tree or chop firewood. But if used in the wrong way, you could use that axe to kill someone. And it's the same thing with artificial intelligence and all this technology, is that it is good, or I shouldn't say it's not intrinsically good or evil, but it's a tool. It's how we use it that makes it good or evil. But because there's good and evil in every human being, and every human being is given a choice to do good or evil, so ultimately, if AI turns on us, it really won't be AI's fault. It'll be the human's fault because we chose machine. We chose technology over God. We made this decision for it to overcome. And that seems like what these scientists are doing. Are they defying God? I don't know. I don't know if they are personally. I know a lot of scientists are atheists. But then at the same time, a lot of scientists end up becoming believers because by studying the natural world, they come to the conclusion, in their goodness of their heart, that this world is too complicated and everything is too precise in nature, even mathematically, for all of this for creation to be an accident. There is a master behind this design. And that's what a lot of physicists come to the conclusion, that the world, the universe is too complicated for it not to have been for there not to have been a creative intelligence behind it. And just as man was created in the image of God, it seems like man is trying to create his own image in machines. Like I said, the Tokyo University, they're finding ways to make synthetic skin to put over these androids to where it's almost like they're combining organic material with machinery. And what's the next stage? I mean, they have computer brains. Their brains are not literal human brains. But what's the next step? Just like in these cyberpunk novels, eventually, are they going to be able to take a human brain and implant it into an android, into a robotized body? And are they going to be able to plug into the internet? And now they don't even have to. Like Ghost in the Shell, this is before Wi-Fi. They had to actually have a wire to plug into the internet, and then the plug into the android to download their intelligence into the web. But now with Wi-Fi, you don't even need wires. So you just put on the Wi-Fi signal and you're connected 24/7. You don't have to unplug. You just stay connected 24/7. That's androids, and then like these scientists are coming out and saying that within a few years everybody will be connected to the cloud. So there'll be and just like in the Matrix, a lot of people chose. The one guy that got unplugged, he asked the artificial intelligence if he could be plugged back in. You know, that and it's addictive. You have Facebook, that's very addictive. Social media is addictive, and that's just it. We're taking all our brain waves, everything in our mind, and we're putting it on the web. And this is doing is generating personality profile, um, psychology. We're already doing it. It's here. So how far? Again, it's up to us, our choice. And then maybe the answer to AI, artificial intelligence versus the human soul, it seems like the only way that artificial intelligence can dominate or can overpower the human soul is that if we allow it to happen. It's like we're giving permission for the machines to take over our soul. And what do we see? That's the same thing with the demons. The devils can't do anything to us unless we make decisions that are against the law of God, and then the Lord allows the devils to oppress us or even sometimes possess us. So really, we all should answer to a higher power, God, the supreme being, and not this artificial intelligence or this computer interface or the internet. And don't get me wrong, I know that there's a time and a place for the internet, just like what I'm doing now. But if it gets out of hand, if it gets unhealthy, this becomes an addiction. It becomes the balance tilts. There's a certain balance that we need to keep a healthy mind and to keep a healthy body. But if if it becomes imbalanced, and the weight of it is leaning more towards machine rather than the human soul, God or the Holy Spirit, then we're in danger. We are in danger. So let's try to limit our internet use. Maybe stay off social media for at least one day. Just do an experiment. Like these scientists do experiments. Let us be our own scientists. You let us use our mind and not just rely upon the net for everything, AI for everything. And then just do an experiment to see how it is to feel to be off Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is for one day, and see what happens. It's just like a drug. Just like you have withdrawals, like people that come off of heroin, they have these huge withdrawal symptoms. Same thing happens if people come off the net for just a few days. They're going to have withdrawal symptoms because we're all addicted to this stuff. Myself included. I'm trying to limit my social media presence and my time online these days. That's why I wanted to make this video, because I caught myself being so wrapped up in technology that it was making me become absent-minded. And I wasn't paying attention to the real world. I was all wrapped up in the virtual world. I thought I was doing some good work online, but then when it came to the real world, I was not doing such a good job. So again, I was uploading myself unconsciously, not even realizing what I was doing. So that's why I want to make this video, to warn people, and not like I'm a prophet of doom, but I'm just speaking from personal experience, that it's not healthy to be so wrapped up in technology. And first they had, the Internet of Things, where all of our devices were connected. You could be, like something like the Ring doorbell, you could be like miles and miles away from your house, but yet you could see what's going on at your house through your cell phone with the link to the camera at your house. And if somebody rings the doorbell, you get the alert on your phone, and you could be in another state even, and you could still see what's going on at your house. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that is high tech. And that's how all these devices are connected. And then stage 2 is to not just be the Internet of Things, but the Internet of the human mind, to where everything is connected. So everything is connected. So where's the thin line between man and machine? What is that threshold? And I think we're at that threshold. We're moving in to man-machine interface. And that was part 2 of Ghost in the Shell. And that's exactly what it was called, man-machine interface. So all these things that people were talking about, like back 30, 40 years ago even, that was science fiction. Today it's science fact. It's science fact. But the human soul has a shelf life, believe it or not. That is, we only live a certain amount of years, and it's God that makes the decision when we die. And we know that from the Garden of Eden, when man ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the forbidden fruit, that death entered into the world. You know that one day we will die physically, and then our soul will depart for judgment. And so what's going on with these rulers or the scientists or the ruling elite is that do they think that they can bypass death by integrating with a machine in a way to achieve immortality? But again, that's bypassing the plan of salvation. That's bypassing Jesus Christ, to where we don't have to answer to God. We're the makers of our own reality. So that's another problem, is that this could be defying God. And I don't know how much more, well, we do know, in the book of Revelation it says, that the Antichrist will be able to give life to the image. Maybe that's some type of man-machine interface, some type of, I don't know. That's a mystery, but I could see now with artificial intelligence and uh, the robots that they've made, I can see that coming as a possibility. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I can see that's a possibility. So man's really or so we could be defying God. Because even if they transplant somebody's brain into a machine, eventually the brain is organic material. Eventually it's going to break down. So then what's the second stage to build synthetic brains that we could upload our conscience? But that's just it. Our soul can only stay on this realm for a certain amount of time, because when the body dies, the soul is separated from the body, and then it goes into the spiritual realm where it goes through the judgment. It faces the judgment of God, whether we go to heaven or hell. So that's just it. Maybe God will win, because artificial intelligence cannot save a human being from hell, and artificial intelligence cannot necessarily save someone's soul that they would go to heaven. And just like you have the resurrection of the dead, at the end of time, when the bodies that house the soul will be resurrected, and the soul and the body will be united again, and if those who make it to heaven will be given a glorified body, like the body that Christ had, that's not subject to death and decay, and live forever with Christ in heaven for all of eternity. So I really don't think artificial intelligence can bring us to heaven. Only God can do that. And only we can do that through our choices. So again, it boils down to the choices that we make. Are we going to choose goodness? Are we going to choose mercy and love and compassion? Or are we going to be selfish, domineering over other people instead of picking our brother up? We're just going to exploit people. And if we do that and plugging ourselves into these android machines, that could, instead of being liberating us, that could just turn us into that could just be a prison for us, And so that's the question: is AI going to become aware of itself? I don't know. I don't think it's possible, but I mean, because the AI only learns what humans input into it. It's only as smart as what can be fed into it. It has to have the input. In order for the AI to have an output, it first has to have an input. So what's going to happen is they're going to make the artificial intelligence so advanced to where it can learn on its own and make its own decisions. I don't know. That's alarming. Again, I don't know if God's going to allow this, but it's enough to wake put the fear of God in you because one time I saw some graffiti um, on this wall. I forget, a long time ago. It said, this is back like maybe mid 2000s. It said, machines are going to take over the world. And that was 20 years ago. And here we are. And seems like those were the writings of the prophets, in spray paint. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of concerned about how much the children are wrapped up in this. A lot of the kids today, they don't know any other life but the internet and uh, smartphones and everything else. So I think maybe that's the solution is to if we can't, the world's not going to unplug, but if we can unplug ourselves a little bit. And the thing about technology trying to be wrapped up and being it's good to be plugged in because that's the way the world is going, and we got to be up to speed with all this technology. We don't want to be left behind. We could lose our jobs. We could not get that promotion. So we always have to be all wrapped up in this technology. But you know what? That's just a hamster wheel. We're not going. We're just chasing, but we're not going anywhere. I think the true growth for the soul isn't so much about inputting, processing, analyzing data, and we need to return to the earth. It's like if somebody could start a garden, actually even get a farmer's almanac and learn what days to plant and learn that science, that natural science, not computer science, but physical science. That we could have a return to the more organic way of life. And if we did that, that would be incredible. If we could, that way, man would be the master of creation because we would be connected to our organic self, and with spirituality, we could connect to a higher power instead of connecting to the artificial intelligence, the internet. And then when we're totally connected with one with God, and we're masters of nature, and then we'll know how to use the technology, the artificial intelligence, whatever it is, as a means to help us as another tool, rather than being enslaved to it. Because that's when God created man, he gave man the power to have dominion over all creation. But being wrapped up in artificial intelligence and technology, we become slaves. And God didn't intend us to be slaves. The evil one, the devil, wants us to be slaves. That's what the devil wants. So is artificial intelligence the devil? Not necessarily by itself. But again, if we choose, the way we choose to use it, or how much we allow it to dominate our life, then it can be to our detriment, I believe. So we have to be very, very careful about how we're approaching the future. And I think a good thing to do is return to nature. I think the best thing, maybe even if you don't want to start a garden, just go outside. If you don't have a backyard, if you live in an apartment or something, maybe go to a park. Find go on a walk. They have these bike trails or whatever, and just go down and take your bare hand and rub it in the earth, in the dirt. Take some out, rub the dirt in your hands and feel that, and get the scent and smell it even, and get some kind of connection to nature, the physical creation. Because if we wrap ourselves up in this technology, then we're going to lose our natural touch. We're going to lose our connection to nature, to what God created, and where everything is going to be synthetic. And that's just it. Artificial intelligence is a synthetic soul. but the human heart has the human soul has the breath of God in it. So are we going to bow down to something that's created? Or are we going to bow down to who created us, the creator? And that's what the Bible says, even and that's idolatry, because it says that. It says those that worship the creation rather than the creator. That's in the Bible. So this art of, like, like on the Bible also says, Solomon said that there's no new thing under the no new thing under the sun. And just like in the olden times, you had the idol, and behind the idol there lived a demon that had the power behind that idol that could influence the human soul. So really, when you look at AI, it's a physical creation with some type of other entity or whatever it is behind that, programming that. So that looks very much like something satanic. So I don't have all the answers, but I've seen enough progress, if you want to call it that, or the advancement of technology over the years, to know that I think the solution, we can't stop this from happening. It's too far gone. It's going to happen. It's beyond our control. But what if we can't change the world, at least we can change ourselves. So I would just encourage all of us to to unplug from social media for a while, at least one day, at least do an experiment, and try to get in touch with the earth if you can. Maybe even, I don't know if greenhouses give tours, but if you go to some place, or even go to a farmer's market even, and get fresh vegetables and get some type of connection to the material world. I mean, yeah, the creation, and not so much the synthetic thing, and and that's just it. Again, we're talking about kids, young kids. So many young people are moving to the cities. They're flocking to the cities. And I don't blame them, to get a better life. And when you're young, you want to be, you don't want to be left behind. But if you really want, but I'm telling you, this is a challenge for all of us. If we really want to be one step ahead of the game in this synthetic, materialistic, computerized machinery, AI or whatever, is to get in touch with the physical world, the creation. Even getting a pet, having an animal in your house, having a dog or a cat, something that will take your mind away from cyberspace. I think that's important to have a connection with nature. And by connecting ourselves with nature, we connect ourselves to the one who created nature. So instead of being plugged in to the matrix, the synthetic world, we can plug ourselves in to the Lord, to Christ, the spiritual world. And that I will say will win in the end. The spirit will in the end overpower the robots. Human beings, I think we have the potential to rise up and not let artificial intelligence control us and beat us. But if we want to win, we have to be connected to God. And ultimately, it'll be God that will step in and save humanity, because the Bible says if God wouldn't have stepped in, then everything would be destroyed. So really, when you think about it, if you take God out of the equation, AI will win. So that's another thing. Instead of not just connecting ourselves to nature, but connecting ourselves to the one who created nature, to God, to have a spirituality. So I think it's important that in order for us to have the edge, or at least compete with AI, or at least keep it at bay, is to become a spiritual person. Is to start to read the Bible, the Gospels especially, the words of Christ especially, and doing that, we can. It will give us the power, the internal power, the spiritual power, because man is made out of two things, body and soul. So we have to feed our spirit. We have to become spiritual people. And that at least will give us the power to at least defend ourselves for what's coming, and connected ourselves not just to the cloud, the internet, again, the cloud. It's like everything seems like it's mimicking what God has created. So it's almost like blasphemy in some ways, you could say, this AI. And bowing and accepting all this technology is like bowing down to an idol. That's idolatry. So we're blasphemers and idol worshippers. That's not a good thing. And that's going to kindle God. That will eventually kindle God's wrath, and God will step in and put an end to all this. But before that happens, I encourage all of us to give Christ a chance, give Jesus a chance. Even if you don't go to church, just again, you can find it on your phone. You don't even have to go to a store and buy a Bible. You can find the Bible apps, and maybe I know a lot of younger people are, in their late teens, early 20s. They're all about, PDFs or reading stuff online. So you know what? If you don't, so use the AI for a good way. Get yourself a Bible app and read some from the gospel every day. And those are the words of Christ. Those are the words of life. And if we can, that's a spiritual message. That's something that I don't know if the AI can be able to do. Is if an AI can prophesy, can a robot become a prophet? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's possible. It could be a false prophet. That's a possibility. But it won't be a true prophet, because a true prophet is totally connected with God, is one with God. And I really don't think that AI is connected to God. So if it's not connected to God, then who is it connected to? It's connected to the human that built the AI. But is the human that built the AI, is he inspired by God? And if he's not inspired by God, then he's inspired from an evil source. And this evil source that's inspiring him to build this machine has the potential for evil itself. So let's connect. Let's get back to nature. Let's get back to spirituality. Even if you want, even watching, even listening to music from the 70s, that'll give us. And I know, and the thing, this is the internet. We have all this at our disposal. We can go to YouTube and just do a quick search, and we could be an expert within a few hours on the whole music genre from the 70s, or even the life in the 70s, for example, or the early 80s. When things were a lot simpler, when I knew some people growing up that didn't even have a phone. Some people didn't even have phones. I remember when we could just we didn't text somebody or call somebody before we wanted to visit them. We would just drive our car to their house, get out, knock on the door, come by totally unannounced, and it was welcome. It was like a surprise. It was like, hey, come on in. Things were a whole lot more laid back then, and a lot more simple, and people were happy. We didn't have all this stuff bombarding us, and we were just fine. We were just fine. And again, people were more connected to the earth. And I remember people had herb gardens, uh, all kinds of stuff going on connected to the earth. And there's some hippie things, connected to that. Don't get me wrong, but there's some good things about the hippie movement that I think we can learn from today even. So looking into the music, and again, the music back in the day, when you had bands, they played their own music, they wrote their own music, they wrote the lyrics, they were poets. They weren't just and again, what do you see today? People are using auto-tune. You don't even have to sing properly. You can just use a computer to make you sound like you hit all the notes. And then the music, it's all, you don't have to even be a musician. You can just use the synthesizer and program, like the sounds from the computer. You don't even have to play an instrument. You can just use a computer to generate every single sound. And if you can't sing, just use the auto-tune, the computer to mimic your voice to make it hit the notes. You know? So maybe that's another solution, is learning to play a musical instrument. Basically what I'm saying is that we need to use our brains, our minds. We have to use the potential of our minds to fend for ourselves and not rely upon technology, computers for everything. Because if we do that, then artificial intelligence will win. And it'll be our fault because we made that choice. We allowed it to take over our life. And that's the same thing that happens to us, people that get possessed by the devil. They become possessed because they allow the demon to possess them. and that ultimately leads to their destruction. So let's choose life. Let's choose. Let's choose the power of God. Let's choose nature, and let's get back to simplicity, and use our own minds and not rely upon the web for everything, the net, our AI for everything. It's a challenge, I know, because we're all wrapped up into it, and we may not be popular for this. We might be people think we might be you know not up to par on things, or not up to speed on the latest trends. But that's okay if we can have that fortitude, that strength to know that we don't need to be on top of everything, technology speaking, to have the edge. Having that connection to nature will be the edge that everybody else doesn't have. You know. So artificial intelligence versus the human soul. Let's pray that we all make the right decisions, and instead of having artificial intelligence to do everything for us, let's use our own intelligence. Because if we don't use our own intelligence, then the artificial intelligence will use us, and we'll be lost.